Without a shadow of a doubt, Peppa Pig is right up there among the most famous, beloved, and watched children's cartoons of all time. But have you ever stopped for a second to carefully notice that there are some pretty bizarre little things in the series that simply have absolutely no answer? George's problem? One of the biggest and most recent mysteries in Peppa Pig was when the show released the episode revealing that our dear George has a hearing impairment, which ended up being treated by Dr. Bear, who fitted the little piglet with a hearing aid that from now on will help Peppa's brother hear better. But the question left hanging in the air is, since when has George had this problem? Was it something from birth, or did he develop it later on? And if he developed it later, when exactly did that happen? That's because if we go back to earlier episodes, we see that Peppa and everyone else communicated perfectly fine with George. Apparently, he understood what they were saying, even though he was just a 2 to 3-year-old little boy. So we might guess this is a recent thing, right? Wrong. That's because throughout all this time, something always caught our attention. George couldn't say anything other than the word dinosaur, even though he was already old enough to talk normally. And this happened exactly because he had mild, partial hearing loss. Since when you can't hear well, it's really hard to develop speech. That's exactly why the end of the episode is so emotional. Since George finally learned to talk, and the very first word he said was Peppa, the name of his beloved sister.
Peppa! 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 Peppa!
But still, we don't know exactly when George started losing his hearing, but thank goodness they noticed it in time, and now he hears everyone perfectly well. Original Eevee? As we all know, Eevee is the newest member of the pig family. However, at the very same time, Eevee is also the oldest person in the family that we know of. And no, we aren't talking about Peppa and George's younger sister anymore, but rather Great Auntie Eevee, who was the actual inspiration for the little piglet's name. But who exactly was Great Auntie Eevee? What did she look like? And when did she live? These are questions we just don't have all the answers to. What we do know is that she shows up in a photo album up in Grandpa and Granny Pig's attic. And actually, she is Mommy Pig's great aunt, not Peppa and Eevee's. Therefore, the original Eevee is the sister of one of Mommy Pig's grandparents. Grandpa Pig doesn't remember her very well, being Granny Pig the one who remembers her, which means Granny Pig is Eevee's niece. But the weirdest part is that even though he doesn't remember her that well, Grandpa Pig says that Eevee always made people smile, which might reveal that her personality was pretty cheerful and kind. Anyway, we know very little about her, and we would love to know more. Maybe in one of the show's future episodes, right? What kind of barbecue? Without a doubt, one of the most disturbing questions of all in the Peppa Pig universe is directly related to the famous episode, The Fire Engine. In it, we see Daddy Pig and his excited soccer team getting together to have that classic weekend backyard barbecue with the guys. But if you look closely and pay real good attention to the screen, you'll notice that among the members of this barbecue crew, there's a zebra, a rabbit, and a pony. And what do they have in common? Exactly. They are all strictly vegetarian animals in real life. Except that, besides that, the creepiest and most bizarre part of it all is that we also have Mr. Bull and Mr. Pig making an appearance at this very same BBQ. And you don't need to be a genius to know that these two groups of animals are the ultimate representatives of the two biggest and most famous types of meat used in BBQs all over the world, beef and pork. So the big doubt hangs in the air. What kind of barbecue can a group of animals like this be having at the end of the day? If you really stop and think about it, whatever the answer is, if it involves any kind of real meat, that would be something almost as disturbing and bizarre as the famous Krabby Patty created by Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob SquarePants, which is actually made out of crab too. Seriously guys, it's way better if we just don't think too much about it, because it might end up completely ruining all the magical charm of these cartoons that were, and still are, a huge part of childhood for so many of us.
Where do the humans live? Besides having super smart talking animals and vegetables that dance and are TV celebrities,
Peppa's crazy world also has a few humans lost in there. This becomes pretty clear when we see a pirate walking right in front of the town's police station, or when Peppa and the kids get to meet the Queen of England. So we come to the obvious conclusion that there are at least 3 groups of beings sharing space in this Peppa world: the talking animals, the giant vegetables that also talk, and a few humans running loose out there too. But the big question is that we rarely see these humans walking down the street, so where do they actually live or hide out? That is the question. If you have a theory about this, drop it down below in the comments. What do the carnivores eat? Just a minute ago, we talked about the Daddy's mysterious BBQ in Peppa Pig. But another unanswered question in the Peppa Pig cartoon that definitely intrigues folks on the internet is, how do the real-world carnivorous animals featured in the cartoon feed themselves in this cute little pink pig's world? And the Peppa series is totally full of them. Wolves, bears, foxes, lions, and even crocodiles inhabit this fantastic world. So don't you think a house totally full of chubby, cute, and juicy little pigs would be one heck of a snack opportunity for all of them? For example, Daddy Pig was the main guy responsible for designing a brand new house where a whole family of wolves was going to live. And in that specific episode, we even got a quick and fun reference to the classic Three Little Pigs story, keeping in mind that in that story, the big bad wolf's main intention was exactly to eat the three little brothers for dinner. Besides that, there is absolutely no way we can forget about Mr. Lion and Mrs. Crocodile, who work normally at Peppa's Town Zoo. We immediately noticed that, out of everyone there, the only person who actually got spooked and scared by the presence of these fierce animals was Madame Gazelle, who is the natural prey for both of these animals in the real world. So the question remains up in the air. How do these animals live exactly? And what do they eat? Maybe just potatoes aren't quite enough. Seriously, my brain is actually getting tired now from thinking so much about these crazy things.
If you're enjoying this video, do the smart thing and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our future videos.
Is Madame Gazelle a vampire? Remember how just a second ago we just mentioned that only the kid's teacher got the chills and was seriously scared to see a lion and a female crocodile chilling and working as regular zoo employees? Well, you should know that there is most likely an extremely good reason for that happening to her. Madame Gazelle is hundreds and hundreds of years old. And since she has already lived on Earth for many centuries, with absolute certainty, she still remembers a very distant and dark past, where animals actually hunted each other down or were hunted without mercy, exactly like what happens in the wild nowadays. Because of that very reason, the instinctive memory of being afraid of lions and crocodiles is still burned really deep into her head, which is very different from the little kids in the cartoon, who were born and raised in a totally modern world where everyone lives in peace and in total harmony. And the big secret reason why Madame Gazelle has so many years of life is the simple and spooky fact that, very likely, she is a blood-sucking vampire. After all, that is exactly what immortal vampires do. This becomes very clear and obvious to the fans due to the fact that we simply don't see her reflection in the mirror during Peppa's famous Halloween celebration episode. And it also becomes obvious when she mentions to the kids that bats remind her very fondly of her beloved homeland, which most likely must be the gloomy Transylvania, which is exactly the homeland of Count Dracula himself and the absolute origin place of all vampires in pop culture. But the lingering doubt is, how did she end up leaving there, winding up all the way in England, and deciding to live her life as a teacher for a class full of little kids? But who knows? Maybe one day they'll explain that to us, right?
Houses on hills? Changing the subject a bit, another super crazy thing that a lot of people wonder about on the internet, and which is super easy to notice when watching The Peppa Show, is the curious fact that practically all the houses we see throughout the many episodes of the cartoon are located right at the very top of super high and really steep hills. The only house that doesn't exactly follow this crazy pattern of being way up high is the Rabbit family's house. But if we take this isolated Rabbit family case off the list, all the other places and buildings, like the Friends houses and the Little Pink Pig's very own school, are built in really high places that are hard to get to. But why in the world do they do it like that? One theory claims that the region where they live suffers from and has a lot of dangerous floods, which even in one episode allowed Grandpa Pig to drive to his grandkid's house using his very own boat as transportation. But is that really all there is to it? Or is there something way more mysterious behind this pattern? How many talking vegetables are there? And as if a talking potato wasn't enough to make our heads spin, we found out by watching the series that actually there is another potato out there that also talks and walks around freely. But on top of everything I've already mentioned, she has nothing more and nothing less than real-life superpowers. Besides these two gigantic and heroic veggies, we can see very clearly in Mr. Potato and his family's special Christmas show episode that they are not the only living foods in town. We also have the friendly Mrs. Carrot, Little Blueberry, and the cute Little Sprout. So, with all of this, the question that keeps hammering in our heads is, where the heck do all these vegetables that think for themselves and act like humans come from? Plus, are they the only ones in the world? Or are there others scattered out there, like a mysterious Mr. Beetroot, for example? Eating potatoes? Since we just talked heavily about the controversial talking vegetables in Peppa Pig, which are a huge mystery to everyone, let's keep the momentum going and also talk about the famous episode, Mr. Potato Comes to Town. In it, we see Mr. Potato telling everyone that they must eat lots of vegetables with their meals. But stop and think for a second. What are potatoes in real life? That's right, my friends, they are nothing more and nothing less than vegetables. Peppa even questions if they should eat potatoes then, creating an awkward silence. This super funny scene shows us that Mr. Potato himself had never actually stopped in his life to think about that before, which definitely leaves huge doubts about how the character was created and how, within the story, he got a life of his own to walk around. How many eyes does Peppa have? To wrap up our list with a bang, it's worth noting that in none of the more than 300 episodes of Peppa Pig have we been able to see any of the beloved characters looking completely straight at the camera. They are always facing sideways. And even seeing them turn the whole time, we can always see both of their little eyes on the screen, which brings up that old and famous internet suspicion. If they have both eyes on the same side of their face, if we were to see them straight on, would they then have 4 eyes spread across their face? This is just another super funny question that remains totally unanswered, or that frankly makes zero logical sense about the wonderful universe of Peppa Pig.
Like Bugs Bunny would say, that's all, folks. Or is it? We're leaving 2 more videos so you can keep watching with us. And trust me, they're worth it. See you later.